Okay, we continue in our introduction of lean project management by looking at project charters. Well, first of all, why even create a project charter? It seems like maybe it's just paperwork. Um, they're not. It's actually very practical, and I have commissioned teams, or at least I can think of one team in the past that I sent out on a mission and turned into a failure. And if I had created a charter, we'd had a really good agreement between management and the team on what I, as management, expected from them, then I believe they would have been successful. And as it was, they really weren't. A project charter communicates the management expectation. It concentrates the team on expected outcomes. It protects the team from project creeps. We'll talk about different types of creeps in a moment. It protects the team somewhat from meddling, because if we've agreed up front on deadlines, milestones, what the expected outcomes are, then I can turn it over to them if they're a trustworthy team. But if we haven't agreed on that, then I may have to continually tweak, and they will view that as meddling. It just improves the likelihood of success. So what types of project creeps are there? Probably the most famous type of creep is a scope creep, where we start out with a fairly small basket of desired items, but we expand it as we go along. People keep saying, well, you know, it'd be a good idea to, or as long as you're at it, and the project becomes something entirely different. During the summer, one of the students used as an illustration the Bradley fighting vehicle, which there's probably the quintessential concept of scope creep. You can have hope creep, effort creep, which happens as we're running up against deadlines. It doesn't look like we're finished. We just keep just pushing a little harder and pushing a little harder, thinking we can get done by effort, when often that's not true. Feature creep, which is sort of a type of scope creep, where we just keep adding features. So charter content would include the following: problem statement, which could be a current statement, a current state definition, showing where the waste is now. The scope, which means, okay, I want to include all of this, but I don't want to include this. So you have an in scope. Here's what I definitely want in it. And often, just as important, you define, okay, I already anticipate you might ask for these other features, but these are not part of the project. Of course, that's a management negotiation, but it's better to have that negotiation up front than it is to just have the features added on as you go through the project. Project description, desired state, justification, deliverables, KPIs, key performance indexes or indicators, budget, timing or delivery schedule, and risk. And it might look something like this. This is one form of a charter, and has all of those. It has some phases for you to define that schedule at the bottom. And in this case, it's sort of traditional project phases. You can use this if you like. I prefer to have one as instead of those phases, just using milestones that you define in your project. Michael Hyatt, who has written a good bit on time management, schedule management, talks about smarter goals. You may have heard of SMART goals before. I like Hyatt's smarter goals: specific, meaningful, actionable, realistic, time-bound, exciting, and relevant. Don't you like the exciting part? You know, I'd like for goals to be something that would, actions that would actually get me excited. When we're looking at projects, quite often we want to define the requirements, and it's what a solution must do, but not how it must do it. Sometimes early on in the process, in that current state definition, we create a SIPOC diagram. SIPOC is just suppliers, inputs, processes, outputs, and customers. Some people refer to this as a POCUS diagram, which is really more the way that you will define it, even though this is sort of chronologically what happens. The way we usually define it is we start with the processes, we go to the outputs next, the output of the process, who are the customers of those outputs, and then we back up and say, okay, looking at that process again, what are the inputs and who are the suppliers? So whether you call it SIPOC is the typical description, but POCUS is the order. So here's a potential charter, and when we look at measurement, I want you to at least consider 3 factors. So you could always think in terms of cost, quality, and timing or schedule, or in this case, performance could be considered as the quality. Have we actually achieved what we intend to achieve? So that could be thought of as quality. And did we do it, for the right, but under budget and on time? Key performance indicators should be quantifiable, and I'm probably going to question you on this. When you create your measures, you're going to be tempted to write down measures that cannot, we can't put numbers to it. I'm going to challenge you on that. KPI is a metric, but not all metrics are KPIs. KPIs should support the goals. What are some common perspectives as we go through and create the charter, or as we create the measures? Well, financial perspectives, customer perspectives, internal process perspectives. So some of our measures should probably be leading measures. A lot of the customer-oriented measures or product measures or lagging measures, the process is over by the time you measured those. And so it's really sort of late in the game. But we'd like some of the measures to be leading measures, that if I get these measures right, then the customer will be satisfied. Don't wait until just measure customer satisfaction. You want to measure that, but we need to measure something before that, some measures before that, and those are internal process measures. And then some measures of innovation and learning are often used to evaluate how well you did with the project. What did we learn? Did we learn lessons that will help us in future projects? And then you could look at this initiate, plan, execute, control, and close, the phases of a project down here, or you could just put milestones. In the example that I'm going to give you, I'm going to use milestones. So here's my charter, and my project is a plan for biking across America. Do I intend to do this? Do I intend to actually bike across America? Yes, I do, but not this semester. I can't really do that in the fall semester and keep up with courses. I've got a job, and but I can plan it. And as we get a little bit farther in the course and you see my plan, you'll see when I plan to do this and how I plan to do this. So I'm not really going to cover some of the first part of this, but the problem statement is basically that it's on my bucket list. I'm running out of time. And by completing a task, an epic task like this, I would challenge my children and my students to dream big and to accomplish some of your dreams. What's in scope? The plan, not the actual bike ride right now, but the plan for a coast-to-coast bike trip. What would be in scope is making it some sort of fundraiser for some worthy charity. And what would be in scope is some trial rides. That might help me actually refine the plan somewhat. What is not in scope, what is out of scope, is the trip is not going to be completed this fall, and no actual leg of the trip has to be completed this fall. In fact, I don't intend to at this point. So that's what's in scope and out of scope. Project description, a completed plan, which would include the route I'm going to take or plan to take, the timing. So when do I intend to do this? A plan for training, how I would work my way up to be able to do something like this. Funding, the equipment. I have the bike I intend to use right now, unless somebody talks me out of it. It may need some modifications, but I have the bike. But there's some other equipment that I need. And defining the charities that I would choose to benefit from this. Justification, again, bucket list, helps charity. It's a project for class. Deliverables would be a detailed plan, a presentation of that plan, and some trial rides. At least one trial ride. I'm really thinking of 2 at this point. Budget, I'm just going to say $250 right now. It's just, again, this is just to get the plan. It's really probably to equip me to make the trial rides, at least the first trial rides. And schedule, I've got the schedule detailed here, but basically here are my milestone dates. And then constraints. I guess there could be course conflicts, though I don't see that right now. Who knows what's happening, of course, with COVID and health. And when I say health, I mean my health could get to the point where I can't do the training rides, or my parents' health could essentially interfere with the project. I don't anticipate that, hope that doesn't happen, but those are the constraints. So that's an example of a project charter for me. And as we go through the semester, I'm going to try to stay a little bit ahead of you and show you an example for each one of the tools that I ask you to submit. So initiate, plan. The plan is the next phase, and that's what I'll be working on next. So thanks, and hope you're ready to get started in choosing your project and defining your project.